Hello everyone, welcome back to another GRIMGAR video. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the romance in GRIMGAR. In my last GRIMGAR review video, I actually talked about how I'm going to actually be doing this week. It's also one of those things in the GRIMGAR community that a lot of people pretty much agree on, and the romance in GRIMGAR is one of the main reasons why a lot of people actually dropped the series. For today, we're going to actually talk about the best romance in GRIMGAR, Mary and Haru, and how that romance actually develops and how that works and why it's mostly good, but it's handled very poorly. And next week, we're going to talk about Ranta and Yume's romance, cough, cough, and why that's an entire train wreck of a romance. But we'll get to that next week. If you're interested in videos like this, like the video, comment, all that stuff down below. Let's get into it. One of the things I should mention about Haru and Mary is they didn't like each other at all right away. Haru thought of Mary as a very scary and blunt person, and he just couldn't confront her because of his, well, meek nature. And Mary did not really see Haru as much of a good leader. She saw Haru as someone she could not depend on and was very weak-willed. In the first light novel, and to an extent also the second light novel, the themes of understanding comes into play with these two characters. They both start to understand each other through communication and through empathy. And because of this, they both grow a very large respect for each other. Now again, this respect isn't right away. Mary initially was very critical of Haru and his horrible planning. But eventually, when Haru gets better at not being a complete idiot, Mary is very supportive of Haru's decisions and is very good at giving him advice when it comes to leadership. Haru actually stays behind constantly after they get drinks with their friends to ask Mary about advice and just talk to her. Neither one of them really at this point has what I would call romantic feelings for each other, but Haru does have like an attraction towards her. And due to the fact that Mary never really gives off the vibe of her not wanting to be around Haru, the chances are Haru would have probably wanted to hang out with Mary away from their friends more if this kept going on for a while. And that's most likely the reason why the writer realized that he needs to put in a bit of a wall, I guess, to keep them from dating, essentially. And he does this in a way that I don't really much agree with, and I'm sure a lot of other people don't agree with as well. He introduces Kuzaku. Now, Kuzaku as a character, I actually do like him quite a lot, but the problem with Kuzaku is that he forces the characters into a really weird situation that's kind of a love triangle, sort of. It's awkwardly done, and the writer goes out of his way to very much imply that it's not what Haru thinks it is, and it's very easy for the reader to realize that they're not in a romantic relationship. By that, I mean Mary and Kuzaku. Mary is very clearly uncomfortable around Kuzaku, and this is specifically because, well, Kuzaku kind of saved her from being assaulted, but she's still very uncomfortable with everything that happened, and she's kind of just she wants to get away from those bad feelings, and Kuzaku kind of reminds her a little bit of what almost happened to her. That's not Kuzaku's fault, for the record. I'm very aware that that makes Mary kind of come off as a little mean. But in her defense, it was a very traumatic thing that happened. Haru thinks that Kuzaku and Mary are essentially dating. And this goes on from volume 4 all the way to volume 7. And because of this, Haru kind of keeps his distance from Mary to an extent throughout these books. And also, throughout the books, we get constant Haru POV of him just acting like he doesn't care about Mary and Kuzaku dating when very clearly he does. And most of the audience, when they're reading this, are probably just not going to be buying any of this. And quite frankly, it just feels like the writers are wasting our time. And to be honest, he kind of is. What makes it worse is when we get to volume 7, Kuzaku tells him that him and Mary weren't dating at all. He actually asked Mary to date him, and she rejected him outright. Now, we don't know exactly when this was asked, but it is safe to say that he probably asked her relatively very quickly into joining the group, or possibly meeting her, which if is when he met her, that would be really bad. I don't think it was that, but who knows? We actually, again, we don't know. Either way, from what we do know, is that this entire time, it was just a waste of time. They weren't dating at all. It was just a misunderstanding. And from this point onward, Haru is a little more open to talking with Mary and actually more interested in kind of developing more of a friendship between him and her. Also, by volume 7, Haru does fully understand and realize that he does actually love Mary. And because of this, Haru and Mary get some moments here and there when they're kind of slowly getting more and more attracted to each other and could develop into an actual relationship. And because, again, there is no reason for them to not be more attracted to each other and eventually develop into a relationship, the writer comes up with another horribly dumb idea and putting them into another nonsense love triangle with Satora. Except this time, Mary's the one that is awkward about everything and is misunderstanding things. Mary has very little information and very little understanding of how romantic relationships are supposed to be, done. So when Satora forces Haru into a relationship that is, quite frankly, gross at every level, like seriously, she gives him an ultimatum of either you give me your eye, because of the deal they made, or I pull away all of my resources from the situation and essentially get your friends all killed, or you become my boyfriend. That's literally the only choices he really had. So since he wanted to save his friends and get them out as soon as possible, he chose to pretend to be in a relationship with Satora. I want to emphasize, again, this is a pretend relationship. It's absolutely a waste of time. But Mary, still for some reason, thinks it's real, even though she gets told multiple times that it is not a real relationship. And Satora also insists on being really weird about the whole thing and trying to tell Haru what to do and how to talk to women, and it's a nightmare. It is an absolute cringy nightmare fest. If you want to know more about all the things I'm talking about, by the way, I have entire reviews of the books where I talk about the stuff that's happening in the context behind a lot of this stuff. You can check the cards on the upper right corner, but let's just say it's not really done very well at all. Satora literally becomes insufferable in these books, and she's constantly trying to stop Haru from even looking at other women, and it's really, really bad. By volume 10, we finally get confirmation that Mary basically loves Haru as well. After a, let's call it a fight between Jesse and Haru, Mary had to heal Haru's face, and then and there, she realized that she actually loves Haru, mainly because she almost lost him, but is very sad about the fact that she cannot be with Haru because Haru is with Satora, which is, again, a fake relationship. This drags on for the entire volume, and it actually, quite frankly, drags down the volume. In the next volume, Satora realizes that Haru loves Mary too, and kind of just gives up on the whole fake romance thing, because, of course, it wouldn't work. You're forcing him to date you! And she seems actually sad about it. Oh, shut the fuck up. Also, Mary kind of dies.
What?
That's a whole thing. And Haru is forced to make a choice. And trust me, I'll get into that in my review of that book when that comes out. But Haru and Mary do finally get kind of together by the beginning of volume 12, when Mary has, a panic attack because of all the stuff that she went through in volume 11. Dying kind of affects people pretty badly. Also, the fact that she might have a bunch of different voices in her head doesn't really help. But Haru finally hugs her, and they finally have an embrace, and she kind of implies that she was waiting for Haru to actually make the first move. None of this matters because they get stuck in a different world to get separated for what's implied to be years in that world. They don't age, though, so they're fine. For 2 whole books, they're separated, and then they're brought back together in volume 15, and then Haru and the rest of the team, except Mary's, minds get completely erased. So Haru has no memory of Mary whatsoever, and Mary's memory is not erased, which I'll get to that in a different video, why that happened. But Mary, for some reason, and again, it's because maybe she doesn't know that much about romance, does not tell Haru that they were basically together for some reason. I guess you can argue because his memory's gone, she might think that she's taking advantage of him. That's an actual argument you could make. I'm not saying that's not a possibility. It's just delaying them dating more and more for dumb reasons. And also them being kind of together in the last couple books the writer didn't do anything with them at all. They were kind of together at that point. But as far as I remember, he didn't do anything with them. And then they finally get together in volume 18. When Haru gets his memories back, he finally makes the first move, takes Mary out at night, and gives her a smoochin', and they start talking some more. And it's implied they want to fuck through the entire volume. I'm not kidding. That's an actual thing that happened. And then at the end of volume 18, Mary loses control of her body to the No-Life King, and now they're just separated again. And part of me understands that their whole romance is supposed to be very tragic. I get it. But wouldn't it have been more satisfying if you just had them date much earlier, had them actually had to interact in the party while being together, and had Haru have to balance his feelings for Mary in a romantic sense while dating her, while also having to manage his party and not put her ahead of them all the time, because that could cause conflict? That would have been way more interesting than just delaying it and then just ignoring it constantly. This is the best romance in GRIMGAR, guys. I think the most frustrating thing about Haru and Mary's relationship is that they're actually really good for each other. They're actually good together. When they get to talk to each other, they are really cute. They have good interactions throughout the entire book series. And that's what makes it way more frustrating when the writer puts like really just unrealistic walls in the way that are just there for kind of gags, but also kind of like forced drama, kind of. It's just really just awkward through the entire book. And I am very aware that Grimgar is not really built for romance. I get that. But if you're gonna have romance in your book, if you're gonna have anything in your book, make sure that it's at least at bare minimum passable, which Grimgar's romance is, to my opinion, it's not passable. It's a lot of it is just kind of subpar or just bad. Special thank you to my Twitch subs. Thank you to Nerberto Games. Thank you to RJS Problems. Thank you to Josias93. Thank you to Hey Take It Easy Terry. Thank you to The Seven Fingered Man. Thank you to That Just Ash. Thank you to Aeon Forge. Thank you to Boo Boo Lou 83. Thank you to Sengalan. This name that kills my dyslexia every time. Thank you to Grayson 100. Thank you to Nazi_Naz. Thank you to Genosaurus Rex. And thank you to Grayson_. Let me know what you guys would have done differently. And I can't wait to talk about Ranta and Yume next week, because that's going to be an actual rant, because that one's so bad. Thank you for watching and have a great day, everyone.